So right now we're going to be showing how to do the fixed hook part 2. We're going to bring this down to our inner dimension of 433 to 435, and then we'll cut to how to do threading, and then we'll show you how to do the threading. So this is my same piece. I'm at 1/2 inch. I'm going to chuck it up in there. Let's turn the light on so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, and I'm chucking it to about where I had last time. It's not that big a deal as long as it's in there well. So the process that I use is I do it in twos. So I'm going to take 2 passes of 20, 2 passes of 10, and 2 passes of 2. Okay, what this means is I'm at 500. I'm going to take 2 passes of 20. So that's taking 40 thou off of 500, which puts me at 460. Then I'm going to take 2 passes of 10, which is going to bring me to 440. And then I'm going to take 2 passes of 2, which is going to bring me to 436. This leaves me 1 thou above my upper tolerance, so I have space to now come in 1 thou at a time, right? And make sure I absolutely nail my final dimension. Now this is going to be the same process we've already done, okay? Make sure I'm at the right RPM. So remember, in order to change this, I need to have it on 800. Okay, I can turn it back off now, but remember, you can't change the speed unless you have your motor running. I'm gonna make sure it's all set correct because we're still doing facing. So A6 is fine, I'm up, my pin is in, okay, and I'm in gear, so I can rotate it by hand. When I'm in out gear, I can't rotate it by hand anymore, okay? So that's a good way to check to make sure you're in the right gear. All right, I can make sure everything's good by turning it on and checking it. Remember, whenever I turn it on, I always press down on the brake first, just in case someone didn't have this down and now it's gonna start spinning wildly, right? I don't want that. I wanna have the brake pressed down before I turn the motor on. Now I can turn it on and I can check with my power feed to make sure my power feed is going in, which it is. You can see it going in, and my half nut is coming out. Okay. So now we're going to do the same process we've done in the past. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Always set your own tools. I can come in, I can do my ruler trick and see where I'm at right here. If someone just ran it, you don't really need to worry too much about that because you can trust that they set it right. But if you really want to make sure everything's good, then you should set your own tool every time, okay? I'm gonna back out my compound slide as much as I can. Up, okay, now I feel it stop. I'm not gonna force it anymore. Now I'm gonna come in 2 full rotations. So there's 1 and there's 2, back to 0. Okay, now I know I'm on my leading edge. I've got all the backlash out of the machine, okay? So now I wanna stay forward whenever I'm making my cuts. I'm going to check it with the ruler. So we'll come in. Remember, you just need to come in enough to make contact. You don't need to like crush it against there, just enough. And what I want to see is it just gently on that side. So it's just gently leaning this way, okay? That's good to go, okay? Now I'm gonna back this up, turn it on, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in just enough to make contact, okay? When I hear it start cutting, I know I'm good and I've hit my 0. So I'm gonna come in, nice and slow. It's got a weird wobble. We're gonna double check that we're tight in here. Pull it out.
Shouldn't you have the machine off for?
Yes, you should. Anytime you're operating here, especially with the chuck key, you should always have it off just in case no one bumps this. Okay, I'm cleaning off to make sure my scales are nice and good. I'm gonna double check to make sure I don't have any weird facets on my face. Everything looks flat. And now we're gonna put it back in there and hopefully that wobble will have been corrected. Okay. All right, we're gonna back it up. We're gonna come in, and I'm just gonna gently make contact. can see the chips here. You can see the chips coming off. I can see it glinting a little bit. I can hear it, right, as well. Now I'm gonna come here. I loosen my screw. I bring it to 0, and I tighten my screw back down, okay? Nice and tight, okay? This has a tendency on this lathe to actually come off, so just make sure you're checking this periodically. Now remember, my process is 2 rotations back, over, 2 rotations in, back to 0, and now I should be at the same spot. So remember, I've come back, I came 2 forward, so that knocked the backlash out this way. I'm still on my leading edge on my compound side, and I'm never gonna pull this back. I'm always gonna move forward, okay? So now I'm gonna come up to 20. And now we're gonna make our first cut. Okay, when I get close, I stop it, and I come in with my hand just a little bit more to make sure I get a nice sharp edge, but not too much. And now I'm gonna back it out. Okay, 1 rotation, 2 rotation. Okay, now I come back to the front, 1 rotation in, 2 rotation. If I never let go of this, whenever I grab this, right, I'm moving it, and I move it back, and I never let go until I'm done, and I'm back at a 0, okay? That way I never get confused and grab the wrong handle, okay? So that was 20 thou. So we can check it and see how much we're actually at. And I can see that I'm at, there is my 425, 45, 475 plus 16, or I can go to my 0, okay? I come up to 5, and now I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I know I'm 9 under, okay? Now let's come and take our next cut, 20 thou. Now, I can always check if I'm worried to make sure I don't blow past. When you're taking these bigger cuts, it's not that bad. So now I can see I'm at 475. So I'm just gonna take off 2 more tins and we'll see where we're at. Depending on how accurate you got to your 1/2 inch, right? These numbers are just supposed to get you close.
So now you're removing the 10,000s?
Yeah. So I'm just coming in until I hit my number, which is I want to get to 440. So I'm just taking, I took 2 20 thou passes, now I'll take 10s until I get there, or 5s, right? Whichever what you're comfortable with. Normally we can do it in 6 passes. And now I can see I'm at 451. So now I'm going to take one more 10 thou, and that should put me at 441. And from there, I'll come in with my 2 thou passes to get me closer. Okay. I'm also gonna grab some cutting fluid at this point after this, because I want to make sure that I'm getting a nice clean shaft for my threads. Okay, so now my number I want to be at is 425, right? Plus 5 would be 30, so plus 10 is 35. So I want to see 425 plus 10 as my minimum. There's 4, there's 25, and now I can see I'm at 16, which is above 10. So I'm 6 thou above, or I can do the math and say, okay, my nearest 0 is up, that's 50, I was at 16, so it's 50 minus 9, or 441, which is exactly where we thought we were. So now I'm gonna grab some cutting fluid. Be aware the best practice for this is to also always turn it off whenever you walk away from it. Okay, but I have 2 people here right now that are watching, so I wasn't too afraid of that. Okay, but if you for any reason need to walk away from the lathe, even if you have the cutting fluid, make sure you turn the motor off. Okay, you don't want any risk of someone to bump it. Okay, I'll take my cutting fluid, I'll wipe it on. Remember, we always wipe it on whatever's not spinning, because whatever's spinning is gonna throw it. But in this case, it's actually spinning pretty slow, so it's not gonna throw it that bad. But make sure you put it on your cutting tool first, okay? So now I'm at 441. I'm gonna take off a 2 thou pass. Now this isn't a super accurate dial. It's as accurate as we can get it, but it's not the best. So you might need to just come in a few more times than you think you do. So just make sure you're measuring it consistently at this point. It's much better to measure it a 3rd, 4th, 5th time than to go under tolerance, and now you've done all the work and you wasted the part and you lose the point, right? And if you notice, when I'm touching this, I'm not touching this or this, right? When I'm touching this, I'm not touching either of these. When I'm touching this, I'm not touching either of these. I'm always touching them separately. That way I make sure I don't, you know, oh, I meant to move it out and instead I slammed it into the machine, right? It's an easy way to just make sure you don't make those common mistakes. Okay, I can see now that I'm at 15. Take another pass. Oh, look, I can see that I'm now, you see how I'm not close to the machine? So what did I not do? I didn't bring it back in to the right number. So now I'm gonna come back in 100, and now I see, okay, I'm still not close. So let me come in another. Because I've always been keeping this at 0, I know it's just a multiple of 0, right? And now I can see, oh, look at that. Now I am at the right distance, okay? Okay, I can see I'm now at 14 plus 25 would be 39. Okay. So now I'm just coming in, making those small 2thou cuts until I get to it, measuring every time to make sure I don't blow past. So I want to make a note here. Make sure that you check this periodically so that this doesn't get loose, because if this nut gets loose, you'll throw your zero out of whack and you'll lose all of your reference. But the other thing is, when you come and look at this dial, like, make sure you're hitting your zero consistently, because if you come off one way or the other, you'd be taking off a full 2thou in or out, which at this point matters a lot, okay? Okay, now I can see I'm at 12, which means I'm 2thou over tolerance. So now I can start coming in by ones. This doesn't cut ones really well, so I'm just gonna try and come in with a 2.5 to a 3. I can't do a half, but I'm gonna try and hit at least a 2, potentially a 3 there to do my last cut. Because I'm 2thou over tolerance, I know I can take a 3thou cut and be within my tolerance, because my lower tolerance is 3.3, my upper tolerance is 3.5. I'm at 3.7, so I know if I took a 3, it would just put me at 4. Sometimes you can't really see your line. It's okay to stop it. Put some cutting fluid in there, and now it knocked all that off, and I can clearly see where I'm at. I said this in the first video, but you can think of it as like, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna come in, okay? I'm gonna come forward, I'm gonna come back, okay? So I come forward, right? Now I wanna come back, I come over, I come back in, okay? Remember the right hand rule, right? If my thread, if I want it to go that way, I curl my hand in the direction, right? So now, if I'm spinning it this way, right, this way, that means I'm gonna drive it that way. If I'm spinning it this way, or that way, right, this way, the way my fingers curl, I'm gonna be moving it that way, okay? You never get confused by that. Also known as lefty, loosey, righty, tighty. Okay, and I can see here my tolerance is 425 plus 8 to plus 10, right? Or it's 433 to 435. So right now I'm at 425. 425 plus 10 is 435. 425 plus 8 is 433. So I can see that I'm at 25 there, and I can see that I'm roughly at 9 there, which means I should be perfectly within my tolerance. I should be at 434 right now, okay? So that's how we turned down from 1/2 inch to within our tolerance of 433 to 435. So I already took a video of how to set everything for threading. I'm gonna post it separately so that if you guys ever wanna do threads, you can do that. But it's gonna be its own video. I might splice it in here, we'll see. But now you'll see me in the next video already ready to do threading, and we'll start there. So we already showed you guys how to do this in another video, but I wanted to take a better version of it. So we're gonna show you now how to set the lathe for threading. So first thing I'm gonna do, right now it's set for my drum spacer. So I'm going to switch from A6, here's 6, A6 to A3 based off this, because I want to do 20 threads per inch. So I'm gonna drop it down and move it over. And remember, this is like, show up here, this is like a clutch, so sometimes I have to rotate this to get this to lock back in, right? It was locked, it wouldn't go up all the way, and then I move it and now it locks in. Okay, so you're having trouble getting that to go into it, just know you might need to rotate this by hand. Okay, I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna move this all the way down, just like that, to the third position. I'm gonna come over here to my thumb and pop this out. You might need to wiggle it a bit to get it to pop out, just like that, okay? So this is out, look at it, okay? And now this, right there, that's in. So that you can see the difference. There's in, and that's out, okay? I'm also going to need to change my speed. So I remember I can't change that unless I turn it on, so let's turn it on. I'm gonna do my procedure correct. I'm gonna make sure that my brake is all the way depressed so I don't accidentally turn it on, start spinning it, and I'm gonna bring it down to 125, just like this. So we're going to shoot for right about there. Remember, we're about to switch this into low gear using the back gear, and that means I'm gonna switch over to the black numbers, okay? Now I need to turn it back off, okay, before I can do that. So let's move that. So now I can move it by hand, right? The second I put it into back gear, I will not be able to move it by hand anymore. I might be able to move it with my chuck key, just barely with the amount of leverage I get, but you will not be able to move it by hand. That's how you know you're in back gear. So back gear, okay, this is in the out or the right position, and this is in, okay, or the counterclockwise position. So just one more. My back gear is turned counterclockwise. My speed is set to 125. My pin is pulled out. My lever is down in the third position, and I'm in A3. Okay. All right. We're gonna cut back now to finishing and doing all. Oh, let's do the threads here. So I need to lift up here, take out my facing tool, and put in my threading tool. Remember the difference? Facing, threading, okay? I wanna put my threading tool in. All right, clean your anvil, clean here, and put it in. And I could also do, now that I have a nice shaft, I could do the ruler trick to double check that this is centered up and down, okay? And fix it that way if I needed to. All right, so that's the end of this video. We're gonna now cut back to doing threads on the other video.
Okay.
All right, so now we're gonna be doing the threading for the fixed hook support. So I have my Sharpie ready to go. I have my Sharpie dropped in the bed, in the mat. I have my ruler right here, my machinist ruler. I have it set for threading. Remember, when we do threading, we want to be in A3, we want the handle down, we want to be in back gear, we want the pin pulled, and we want to be at 125 on the low gear, okay? I did a separate video showing how to set all of those, okay? I also have my threading tool in, I've done my ruler trick, everything's good to go. Now I'm going to bring it over. Also, I didn't say this in the last video, which I should have, is remember that we stopped at 1/2 inch because after that point, once you start this process, you gotta finish it. So you need to make sure there's enough time, right? If there's 20 minutes left in the lab, you don't have enough time to do it, okay? So now I'm gonna grab my Sharpie.
So once you cut down from the 1/2 inch, you have to thread.
Once you start cutting, 1/2 inch is a big enough tolerance where if you notice there was a little bit of wobble in the machine, it's not gonna matter that much because we start at 1/2 and the second we start taking those cuts, it recentered itself. All right, so this is still nice and center for what we need. But if I had stopped that wobble would have been enough to throw me out later on, okay? So I'm in low gear now. I'm gonna take my Sharpie and I'm just going to make a mark. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to bring it over to 3/16, okay? I'm gonna turn it off because I know I'm gonna be touching my chuck and my spindle. Okay, where's 3/16? So I can see here, there's a 1/2, there's an 1/8, so that's a 16th, so that's 2/16, so that's 3/16. Okay, now I'll bring it over to 3/16, just like that. We can see that I'm roughly there. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, because I don't know right, how off these are is I'm gonna re-zero everything, okay? So I'm gonna back, especially, if we already backed this all the way up, so we should reasonably be able to come back in another 100 thou without an issue, but just to make sure, I'm going to back this up and come back in 2 full rotations after I've backed it all the way up to 0, okay? And now I know I'm gonna reset this. How am I gonna reset it? When I make contact and I make that mark. So now we'll double check here. Make sure I'm at 3/16. Okay. I'm right there. I'll turn my machine back on. I don't care where I am right now on my cross slide. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it on, I'm gonna make my mark, and that's how I set my 0. Okay, so I'm just gently coming in here, nice and slow. And there we go. Can you see the line? Okay, so now I know I'm at 0 here. I'll reset this so I loosen my thumb screw, reset my 0, and now I'm gonna back it out 2 rotations, come back in 2 full rotations, back to 0. Okay, I can double check by bringing it close and seeing. Okay, I'm good to go now. Now the procedure here is to take off 20 thousandths cuts up to 40, then up to 60, and then at 60 you start taking 2 thou cuts until you get the go gauges to thread. Your go gauges should be right here. Okay, go, no go. Okay, so the goal is to get the go gauge to thread and the no go gauge not to thread. So I've already talked about this a little bit, but I'm gonna put some oil on it. I'm gonna come up to 20 thou. And now I have to hit the same number every time. I don't necessarily need to, because we're doing an even threaded pitch that's a multiple of 4, I could actually hit any of these numbers because it's divisible by 4, okay? If this was divisible by 3, I'd be able to hit one of the numbers. If it was divisible by 2, I'd be able to hit the opposite number. So I hit 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. So that's just based on how thread pitch works, okay? So I'm gonna bring it over. I'm now grabbing my half nut. Remember, power feed now is pulling me this way really slowly, and half nut now comes in. When I hit my half nut, you'll notice the numbers lock together, right? Oh, there it's turning on its own, and now it's not turning anymore, okay? That's how we do it. So we're already on 4. We'll let it go until we hit. Never let go of this once you start doing it, because you will forget, let go, grab the wrong handle, it won't turn off, and then you'll slam the part in, okay? If you see how slow it goes, you might be tempted to be like, man, what do you mean people aren't paying attention right now, right? This is a pretty monotonous task right now. So just take the time, pay attention. There we go, we're making our first cut. And I'm gonna stop it when it hits that line. Just like that. And I let it finish its line. So it just finished that cut, okay? My half nut is down. It's just finishing right there, so that it was a spiral, and then it hits, and now it makes a circle, and then I pull it out, okay? 1 rotation, 2 rotation out, over, 1 rotation, 2 rotation in, back to 0. Okay, now I'll come in another 20. Okay, I can check to make sure I have my nice cutting fluid on there. And now I just gotta wait for the 4 to come back around. I could hit that 3, but just so that you guys know, like, the best, you will not get confused and you won't mess it up if you just hit the same number every time, okay? Okay, yep, that's cutting, but look, see how I'm in the same spot on that 4? Let it finish its cut. 1 rotation, 2 rotation out, over, 1 rotation, 2 rotation in, back to 0. Okay, now I'm going to come in another 20. That should bring me up to, so in the original drawings, I think it tells you to go up to 50 and then start taking passes. Because I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, I want to make sure I turn it off, right? There's no reason for that to be spinning unless I'm actively doing something with it. So in this system, it wants you to in between 5 and 6. This is old. So far, I've not seen anyone do it unless they were in between 6 and 7. So it's just off by, this is just off by 10,000. Okay, so I'm going to take another 20 and we'll get up to 60 and then we'll see where we're at. Make sure you're using the cutting fluid. Remember, this isn't actually cutting fluid, it's threading fluid. It's actually magic tapping fluid. And so it's actually designed to cut threads. If you don't do this, you're gonna get marked off because your threads are going to look really rough and ragged. You know, like I went to the Bear last night and now they have an 8 a.m. lab, they're not gonna look good. So a question I usually get is like, how do I know how far to stop once I've made my initial cut? And it's not that hard. I'm just now, instead of looking at the top edge, I'm looking at the bottom edge for where it's coming, and I'm gonna try and be like, okay, I'm gonna hit roughly that same spot. If you take a little bit too much left or right, it's not that big a deal. Because at the end of the day, we don't really measure that. We only measure the depth. So when we grade this part, we measure where these threads, if I'm gonna touch this, right, I wanna make sure it's off, okay? We are gonna measure our depth here, right, where they go, and we're gonna try and measure that flank as well. But if this is a little bit wide, you know, 2 or 3 thousandths forward or back, it's not that big a deal, okay? So I'm just trying to hit that same spot though. All right, turn it back on. Now I can check, let's check. We shouldn't be anywhere near close, but we'll check it and see. Okay, my go gauge just now is starting to thread on. Okay, I was able to get maybe half a thread on it. So now we're gonna take 2 thou passes until we make it. Gonna make sure that I'm up, okay, in the same spot. I'll wait for my 4 to come back around. This is also moving really slow at this point, so you can absolutely put cutting fluid on the threads. Just be aware it could throw off your ability to see if you don't wipe off the chips as well. Do you see how maybe you might be like, oh, hey, yeah, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just doing this, right? It's gonna take 35 seconds to get to the part. So just be aware. It's really easy to like stop paying attention. You don't do that. Like, this is the most important part, this is the most important part of this part. And it's where you can easily mess it up. Now I'm just gonna keep coming in and checking with my go gauge. Okay, I can see it threaded a little bit more, but not that much. Let's take another 2 thou off. We can see here, we're just waiting for that 4 to come back around. And the carriage is meshed with it, so just be aware if you move the carriage, it'll move it really fast. So you could move it up to hit it, but then it's like, well, now you're just waiting for it to travel instead of just waiting for it to be here. Okay, it's starting to thread on a little bit more easily. I can feel it. I might be able to force it on, but that means we're probably 1 or 2 thou out, so we'll just come in by that much. Take a nice 1 thou cut. Make sure you're still hitting your 0. Like hitting this 0 really matters. Making sure it stays tight really matters. Okay, because if I'm off here, it's a way bigger difference. This is 1 to 1. This is 2 to 1, right? So 1 to 2. So it can be a way bigger issue, right? If you move this by 1 and you don't hit your 0 correctly. Okay, let's see it. And there we go. Threads all the way on. We'll turn it off because we're close to being done. Okay, threads all the way down, all the way on. Comes back off. After you do it the first time, it should then want to whirl on like that. That's how you know it's cut really well. Okay, now we take our no-go gauge and we'll see if this is fixed now. Okay, and it won't thread on any more than that. So that's how I know it's good. If it kept threading, right, past the first few inches, that means I'm out of tolerance. Some of these are off. We've tried to pull them out, but just be aware, at this point you would keep it in here and you'd have your buddy wait here and you'd go, hey, can you come check this? And we would check it by grabbing the other go gauges that we have, which are a little higher accuracy, okay? So we've now done the threading. There's 2 more steps. I need to deeper this edge here. This edge is sharp here. And I need to put a chamfer on this edge so it threads easier. Okay? So I'm gonna take my file and we're gonna do the same thing that we did on the drum spacer. I'm gonna turn it on and off again. Okay? This one's honestly at a pretty low speed that you might be able to do it without, but I wouldn't recommend that without a lab monitor there to help you. So I'm just gonna turn it, yeah. We'll just keep it on there and we'll just come in just like that. Just trying to put that nice, so I'm using the edge of my file here. We had a wider one that was way better at doing this. I need to go grab it, but I don't want to make this demo any longer. Just holding at a 45-degree angle and cutting that chamfer. Okay, remember I'm holding it in a position that my fingers are nowhere near what's rotating, and if for some reason it did grab, it would throw it down this way and it wouldn't hit my body, right? It would come out like that. Okay, so that's done there. Now what we're gonna do is, we're going to bring this over. We're going to bring this back to 0 because we need to put a 45, we need to put the chamfer in it, which is one of the last steps. Sorry, it's still a chamfer. So we need to come in 80 on the cross slide to do this, okay? So we're going to, this doesn't really matter at this moment. We're just going to do it by eye. So I have a few options. So one of the ways I could do it is come over to my nub, right? I know I'm at 0 here. If I bring this back to 0, so I'll move it back 2 rotations, and then back in 2 rotations. back to 0. I am now, or I should theoretically be, exactly where my nub was at the beginning, right? Because I'm at 0, 0, that's where we started, right? So now I just need to come in 80 thou here, like that. And now I'm gonna come over until this tip is in the mid-plane of the part, okay? My other option would have been to set it to 0, come over to the mid-plane, and now with it spinning, I just come in 80. So either of these options are fine. The only thing is, what I don't like about this, doing it this way, is if I'm now a little bit off left, like this side, I could cut it a little bit inside, which I would prefer to cut it a little bit on the outside. So instead, why wouldn't I just come over a bit, come in 80, and then press it up against it? And because you're cutting on the same face, okay? So we'll come in here, we'll come up to 80. We're using our cross slide here. And now I'm just gonna bring it in. Just like that, put some cutting fluid to see my lines, which is the downside of doing it this way. Okay. But now I'm nice and square, okay? Back it back up, come back over, and now I'm done. This is going to be the end of part 2. In part 3, we'll show you how to do the CNC, okay? So we'll pop it back out of there. Now that we're done, and we can see our end result, okay? I've got my nice threads, my go gauge goes on, my no go gauge doesn't go on. I'm at my 3/16 from this edge. I have my chamfer here, that nice one, and then I have my nice knocked over edge here, so this is no longer sharp. Okay, we'll see you in the next video.